Hey there, gang. They say that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So, in the interest of being our best selves, let's reflect on Magic the Gathering in 2024. Welcome to Head Games.
Alrighty. Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is the Zombie Apocalypse. The older I get, the more it looks just like Steve.
Hello again, friends and opponents. I'm Jeterex, chocolate enthusiast and amateur historian. When I publish in academic findings, I use the name Tim.
Wow, impressive. Thank you for joining us today on the Head Games Commander podcast, where we talk about the Magic the Gathering Commander format. Tim, I am dying to know, what are we talking about today?
He says that as though he didn't plan the whole episode with me.
Not at all. Not at all.
Wow. It's 2025, and last year, 2024, was a big year, and there is quite a lot to unpack. We had murders and war, assassinations, anthropomorphized animals, and that's just in Magic.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Today,
you forgot to mention about all the cowboy hats, too.
That's right. Today, we're going to remember 2024, cowboy hats and all. We'll talk about the various releases, the most impactful sets for us, the least impactful sets for us, and why it was definitely Ravnica Clue. And we'll talk about our favorite cards from the last year. So we're going to start by just generally reviewing the major releases. Obviously, this is not comprehensive. There's lots of different smaller things, secret layers and the like. We didn't include every tiny little thing, mostly just major releases here. So the first one of the year of 2024 happened all the way back in January, more than a year ago at this point, and that was Ravnica Remasters. So Steve, what do you remember anything about this set? What were your impressions?
The only thing that good came from this set were the Shocklands, and I believe they reprinted Cyclonic Rift. So
Yeah. That noise is how I feel about it too. I just don't get excited about reprint sets in the same way anymore. I know it's good for the community, it's good for everybody's wallets to have the opportunity to pull those cards again. It usually drives the price down. So good for the scene. Not as far as we're concerned, something, worth writing home about. The second release of 2024 was Murders at Karlov Manor, which, in case you didn't know, is actually a Ravnica set.
Mm-hmm.
So that came out in February 2024. What do you remember about the murder mystery and the investigation?
Honestly, I like the flavor of it because one of my favorite book series is it starts off as a murder mystery and then it evolves into crazy apocalyptic war in Chicago, but that's a story for a different day. So I like the idea of the story, and the cards were fine, but I like the idea of what behind everything more than the actual cards themselves. So
I think that I agree. I think when you put this set in the context of everything else that came out in 2024, it looks really weak by comparison.
Yeah,
but it is actually there is some powerhouse in the set, and I want to remind everybody that I'm fairly certain the Surveil lands came out of this set, and they are something that's going to be you're going to see them forever. Like, they are very, very good for a lot of different reasons. But overall, there definitely did seem like there was something missing from that set. So on the heels of Murders, we had Ravnica Clue Edition 2 weeks afterwards on February 23rd. What do you remember about Ravnica Clue?
The guy that dresses up as Teferi dressed it up as Plum.
Yes. Oh, I forgot. That was terrific.
That's about it. That's the only thing.
So to remind the audience, we went to MagicCon Chicago last year, and we'll be going again this year.
We'll play with you. Just ask.
Yeah. You'll see us hopefully, because we'll have our Head Games logo on stuff. So we went to Magic on Chicago last year. This had just released, and there's a fairly well-known cosplay fella who usually dresses as Teferi and even kind of goes by Teferi when he's doing content. And he did Mastermind Plum, and it was spot on, high quality cosplay. Just can't say enough good things about it. But that's all we remember about this set because it was such a forgettable thing.
Yep.
To let the audience know, Steve and I talked about this before we started the episode today. I actually bought a Ravnica Clue edition, and I haven't opened it yet.
And it will remain that way.
About a year old, and that's how inconsequential it feels. Next, we have more of a highlight, which was Fallout, which is 4 pre-constructed commander decks, similar to the Doctor Who release the year before. That came out on March 8th. So what do you think about Fallout? Just basic impression.
I have no words for this set. All I can do is this. Chef's kiss.
I love Fallout and really like we've talked a lot about how Universes Beyond, it can be hit or miss because not every IP, not every intellectual property is going to be something that sings to me, but they really have done well so far, so they must know their audience. And I realize what that means about me is that the things I'm a fan of are pretty overlapping with a lot of other Magic players, because so far the stuff that they've put out has been like the big releases anyway. Doctor Who, Fallout, Lord of the Rings, all of these are properties I love very well. So yes, I love the Fallout release. I was a pretty big fan of that. So the next main set release in April was Outlaws of Thunder Junction, affectionately referred to as the Cowboy set. So impressions there?
This here town ain't big enough for the two of us. No, this set's pretty cool. I liked it a lot. I remember when I was a kid being babysat by my babysitter, Wheezy, and she was so into John Wayne. That's all we ever watched at our house. Yeah.
Fascinating.
And so, pow, I'm all about them cowboys.
You make light of it, but This Town Ain't Big Enough has become an incredibly powerhouse card, and is actually, as even for an uncommon, it is remarkably good. I am very conflicted about this set, and I know I'm not alone on this one, where the card design and power level of the cards is all right where I want it to be. There's some very, very strong cards in this set, and I think the design was really good, but I am just so cringed out by the actual cards, by the cowboy hats on everything, by the setting. Like, I just cannot get on board with it. So it's like, I really love the cards, and I really dislike the setting, I guess. Yeah, so it's a tough conflict, I think.
Yeah.
Next major release is in June 14th was Modern Horizons 3. What are your thoughts?
All around, this is there's something that this set that I did that I really enjoyed, and it turned older cards. We'll talk about one of the cards specifically, but like they made older cards but updated them and made them a little bit more fair and just like in a different light, and it was something that I really enjoyed. Another card that's on that list was Siege Gang Commander, and what's the Eldrazi one?
Right.
But they made a Siege Gang Commander that made Eldrazi's instead of goblins, and it was just like shining the light on old cards that speak dear and near to my heart, and it was just fun. It was a lot.
Yeah,
of powerhouse.
I really appreciate. It's true. Like, and the Modern Horizons set, whether you like the sets being printed right into Modern, there's obviously a discussion to be had around that. We being primarily Commander players with in my case, a dash of Standard here and there. Modern Horizons just gives me a new swath of cards to put in my Commander decks, and because the power level is more pushed, it's often really powerful cards, and I think that we really saw them trying to balance old cards here, which is neat, because if you're playing with those old unbalanced versions, now you get another copy that's very similar but perhaps a little watered down. But if you're trying to manage the power level of your deck, you might include the new slightly less powerful version of it, still getting a similar effect, but kind of keeping you in that casual gameplay state. So I think, Modern Horizons 3 has a lot of good design wins to it,
Mm,
notwithstanding what it did to the modern format, but that's happened every time. Every Modern
hmm.
Horizons set has warped the modern format. So, but, it takes a little while for it to figure itself out.
Thank God it doesn't
Next,
affect
still in
me.
the
I said
yeah,
thank yeah.
that's right. And and for you modern players out there, we feel for you, but we just, it's not our format. So the next summer release was in July. That was the Assassin's Creed set.
I'm sorry,
Impressions on this one?
Assassins who?
Yeah, who?
This set went so far under my radar. Honestly, I didn't know it existed. Or I mean, obviously I knew it existed, but like it felt like it didn't do anything amazing, right?
Yeah,
There's a couple of cool cards that I would love to see, like the Trinity thing that makes all your stuff base power 9/9s if you exile.
right.
But
Yep.
other than that, like, eh. I mean, they made cards with
It's
real people on it, which is kind of weird with
right.
Da Vinci and
That's
stuff.
definitely a head scratcher, right? Like it's kind of the first time we're seeing that, because Assassin's Creed, which is a fictional story, but it included historical figures in it
Hmm.
who were real people. We for the first, well, it's not the first time, because there's definitely cards way back in the day in Arabian Nights and Legends that are
Right,
based loosely in history. So, but here's the first time we got like Leonardo da Vinci, who was for sure an actual person,
right.
and now we have a magic card that reflects him. So I look forward to when we get like Freddie Mercury on a card. That'll be really neat.
Ooh,
Hmm.
you have to sing one of
So
his songs to
I'm
get
with you
his
on this
abilities.
one. Like it's a curious release for a lot of reasons, but just timing wise, it
It
was
seemed a
right
little
on the
off,
heels
yeah.
of Modern Horizons, and that happened with a lot of the summer releases. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but really, like, there's only 3 weeks in between Modern Horizons and Assassin's Creed. I really think that that did it a disservice. Like, it was
Right.
hard to get hype about it when people were still figuring out Modern Horizons.
Yeah, it was like spoiler season into a spoiler season. It was kind of weird.
Into a spoiler season, because
Right.
next, that was July 5th was Assassin's Creed. Then August 2nd, less than 30 days later, was Bloomborough. So this is the anthropomorphized animal set.
Hmm.
Thoughts on Bloomborough?
Honestly, I think I like this set. I mean, Hair Apparent is apparently amazing. Uh,
Right.
and man, there's just everything's so damn cute. I just want to be like, oh, look at it. But dude, this set's great. There's a lot to love about this set. There's a lot of good archetypes that were in this set, and now I get to make an otter deck whenever I feel like it.
Yeah, there is. I think that Bloomborough, if I had to pick a set that is like really the most well-rounded, like it hits all the notes for me of this year, it's probably that one. It just in terms of design and power level, like it is right in the sweet spot where it doesn't feel like too much in any
Mm-hmm.
direction. For as cringy as Outlaws is, Bloomborough just works, and we have to give credit to the artists on this one. Like it
Mm-hmm.
really could have gone a different direction where it felt so cartoony and off base that it didn't work, but it just did.
Mm-hmm.
It's solid across the board. We just didn't get enough time with it in standard, and everybody who plays standard knows that. Bloomborough like got kind of overrun by what follows it. A little over 6 weeks later in September 27, we get Duskmorn House of Horror. What are your thoughts on that one?
Man, this set was cool. Like it was it's weird. I don't like watching horror movies, but I like watching things about horror movies.
Okay.
So, so like the references that they did in this set, I saw them and was like, I see what you did there. But
Right.
it's just cool to like, again, like the universe beyond things. I like seeing different IPs and different things, and like they were able to get a whole bunch of different IPs and just slightly change it enough that it's not copying it, but you get where they're getting it from, and it was just fun to see.
Which actually like opens the door for secret layers that are
Mm-hmm.
different skins on a lot of these cards where they do actually, directly reference the original
Mm-hmm.
IP and that it's just an easy fit. It's almost as though when you look at some of the Universe Beyond stuff, this reminds me of like Street Fighter,
Mm-hmm.
and that when you look at the Street Fighter cards, for whatever reason, it just really felt like the design was lined up with the abilities of the characters really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have that with the Duskborn cards, but you have a Magic the Gathering
Mm-hmm.
skin on it.
Yeah.
So if you put the original skin on it, like the Jason Voorhees skin on
Mm-hmm.
Unstoppable Slasher, you would look at that and go like, yeah, that fits
No, no,
perfectly.
that
They
works. That
basically
works.
designed that card to be him.
Yeah, yeah. So,
And then the last big release of the year was in November, November 15th. We got Foundations, which for those who are not familiar, Foundations is a direct to standard set that is meant to stick around in standard for at least 5 years. That's what they're saying right now. So we basically got a once in 5 years core set, and with the, we don't know what's going to happen after that kind of wink from Wizard. So thoughts on Foundations?
I think again, like it's hard to talk negatively about most of these sets, right? I
Yep.
enjoyed the set. Like I like the idea of just because there was a lot of good reprints in this set. There was a lot of good like there. I mean, the cards in this set were just good too, and uh. There's one card in this set that I'm super excited to play, and I got to play it once, and it was really cool. So,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, it's just it's hard to talk negative about most of these sets.
It'll be interesting to see, I think, how the Foundations experiment goes because
Mm-hmm.
and again, I'm a pretty avid standard player, so this does impact me. That we have this set that is meant to be a long-term core set. So they basically said to us, like, this is the base power level because that's what core sets are meant to be, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the base power level for the standard format. It used to be for the next 2 years. Now we're looking at this one and it's for the next 5 years, which doesn't even line up with the standard rotation. So I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that. But they had to try and balance power level with long-term playability.
Right.
And with power creep being what it is, that's a tall order. That is very difficult to do. So I don't know if they've done it yet. I think the Foundations is a solid set. You definitely have some examples here, like Modern Horizons, where they have versions of cards that are similar to something we've seen before,
Mm-hmm.
but ever so slightly drummed down a little bit. Vengeful Blood Witch comes to mind as a slightly less potent version of
Yep.
Blood Artist. Or even Raise the Past as a slightly less potent version of a lot of different
Right.
smaller animator spells. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this is a good reprint set, as you said, because when I get a reprint set, I don't want it to be 100% reprint.
Right. I want some new
I
stuff with
love
it.
it. I do, and like honestly, I have always been a fan of core sets for that reason. They may seem a little lacking in the context of all these other really flavorful and really
Mm-hmm.
unique sets, but this format kind of needs them. So Foundations are solid, but we'll see if the experiment will be good or bad in the long term.
Right. So now that we've discussed each set that came out, I do want to go more into detail with what sets most impacted us on an individual level, not necessarily like these are the best cards or this is the best set of the year, but like what kind of like just wrong with us or what kind of just fell flat and just we didn't like care about. So, Tim, what was the most impactful set for you?
This was a snap keep answer for me. Like there just isn't a question to me which of the
Sure.
sets this year really, really like rang to me, and it is Duskmourn and House of Horror. I think that all of the complaints I had about Outlaws of Thunder Junction, it's very amazing to me that I don't have the same complaints about Duskmorn, because
Right.
it really did the same thing where they built a set from the ground up focused on theme first and kind of structure and mechanics second. And for whatever reason, it just worked for me in a way that Outlaws didn't.
Right.
And I think you can side by side the sets fairly well, looking at like power level and the fact that they shoehorned a specific idea on
Hmm.
top of the set. But Duskborn just it just, again, it just rang for me. It just resonated with me in a way that the other set didn't. And I wouldn't consider myself a horror fan either. It just
It's
I
interesting.
liked a
Yeah.
lot of the I like a lot of the art on these cards, and I will say this: there is a very real possible reason why I am biased towards Duskmorn, and it's because when I went to the Duskmorn pre-release, I performed really well, and my prize packs were among the best pulls
Right.
I've ever gotten from a winning set of prize packs, and it's just like I think it endeared me to the set in a
Right.
really powerful way. So now I'm just like, I will forever love this set because of that experience.
Yeah, I'm not really shocked because I feel like the decks that you had the most fun building and talking about, even just like on our podcast, were the one from Duskmorn and stuff like that. So like just to see and like every time that we pick a card or something, it's always from the Duskmorn set. So like I am not shocked that you find Duskmorn to be your go-to one. So
Mhm.
I like to cheat a little bit when it comes to these things. I'm actually going to pick two, and they're going to be for two very different reasons. Okay, so the first one that I'm picking is actually Murders at Karlov Manor because, again, it sings to me with the story, but it's more about what we did right after this set came out, and that was go to Chicago and just to be able to talk to all the content creators that I did, all the people that I got to meet, and all the things that I was able to accomplish out there felt really good. So like it's just a moment to me that just sings for that. And then the second set I am picking is the Fallout set because I am a huge fan of the Fallouts. Like there was this one summer that I lived with my dad, and one of the games that I brought and played all summer was Fallout. So just to see those Fallout creatures on Magic cards and being able to just see them in different lights, it's really exciting for me and stuff like that. So
I would put Fallout as my close second as well,
yeah.
because what I love most about it is that they were able to do the same thing that they did with Lord of the Rings and the same thing that they did with Doctor Who, and that they were able to make mechanics fit into the Fallout world
Right.
in a way that felt exactly right. So if you're a fan of the series, you can find cards like Alpha Deathclaw or the
Hmm.
Cannon or even the Nuka-Cola machine that when you actually play the card in a game and see how it impacts the
Yep.
game, you think to yourself, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That fits very well. So the flavor win mechanically for this set was on par with those other Universe Beyond sets, and it gives me a lot of hope that as we get more Universes Beyond, whether we like it or not, it's happening. So as it gives me hope that as that happens, the mechanical flavor will line up really
Right.
well, and we will say to ourselves, like, this really does fit into the Magic world, which says a lot about the versatility of the game itself,
It's
that it's
true.
able to mechanically bring in these other IPs.
Yeah, I just want to give a lot of credit out to all the people that are creating these cards because it just shows you the dedication and the love that they have for both IPs of Magic the Gathering and the IP that they're making the cards for. It's just again, I really enjoy all the Universe Beyond sets. You can crucify me all you want, but like I just really love the attention that they get to these sets, and I will love all of them from here to Kingdom Come. So, so now that we talked about stuff that we loved, we're gonna go into a bit of a downer note and talk about why Ravnica Clue Edition was the least impactful. No, okay,
What's the least impactful set of the year?
So we already talked about how that's unimpactful for us. So we decided to actually pick two different sets that just didn't sing with us. So Tim, what set did you pick?
So my pick was Assassin's Creed, and we already, kind of hinted towards this, that like there's a lot of reasons why this one doesn't make some sense to me. And I think that here is the other side of the Universes Beyond coin, where I'm not against Assassin's Creed. I just don't know anything about it. And I'm a video gamer. It's just not a series that I ever got hitched to.
Mhm.
So when I see this come out, I don't get the references, and it makes me less interested. And I have seen some of the cards from the set, but because of when it came out and because the IP was less interesting to me, I paid very little attention to it. It's not to say that the set is bad. It's probably great. I just was not interested in it for a lot of kind of circumstantial reasons. And now, now it'll probably be under my radar forever.
Right. Yeah. For me, it felt very shoehorned in. Like it was just too tight. Like we just got done getting excited for one set, and then there was the next set that they're kind of already talking about. That like it just felt like it was pushed under the rug. Like don't get me wrong, the cards in the set that I looked at look really fun and exciting, but like, man, it was just too much it was just too much at the wrong time. Like there was too many sets going on. So
yeah, I wonder what would have happened if it would have been released at a different time. I also think that like the format by which they released it is a little confusing to me, because it was a direct to
modern, wasn't it?
Eternal format set. So like it's really direct to modern, direct to Commander, like Modern Horizons 3. So we got two of those back to back, but it's not as large of a set. It didn't.
Right.
Did it have Commander pre-builds? I don't actually know.
I have no idea, to be honest.
I don't even know. So like here we have Fallout a couple of months earlier, 4 direct to Commander pre-builds, and that feels great. This has packs that you can get random cards in, and it's supposed to be direct to those Eternal formats, but it's not big enough to be a full release set. At least I don't think it is. So I'm just very confused at the choices they made, and like either do one or the other. Make it a Commander pre-built set, or make it a full release set like Lord of the Rings. But why the middle road?
Yeah, it's a little confusing. So that's why it was your pick. So the least impactful set for me was Ravnica Remastered. And we as we said earlier, like we did talk about this before, where it's just like I like reprint sets, but I don't want 100% reprint sets. Like I was okay behind like Eternal Masters and stuff like that, where it's like from every set, like it's not like, because like there's only a certain amount of cards that you need from the Ravnica block, and that's like Clonic Rift, the Shocklands, and now the Surveil lands. But what else do you need from, like, I don't need to see Niv Mizzet for the 1600th time. I don't, like, I'm sorry, like that's just not what I need.
And really, like these remastered sets, right? Like we did Dominaria remastered. Now we've got Ravnica, and this year we're doing Innistrad. Like they are very quickly going to run out of like planes that have had enough sets to warrant a remastered set. Like we may have already run out, because obviously we've been on Dominaria more than any other set, but Ravnica's a close second, and Innistrad's like a distant third. So now are we gonna be like, are we gonna do Tarkir remastered? Yeah, are we gonna do Kaldheim remastered and there's only been
Woohoo!
one set? Like, what are like? I don't think that there's enough other sets that we've been to multiple times. Zendikar, now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
but as you decrease the number of sets you can pull from to enter to make a remastered set, the power level of that remastered set continues to drop. Like the Innistrad remastered, I look at that and go, I'm not sure if it's fully spoiled at this point, but I look at that and go, the power level of that is like a standard set. Like
Yeah.
it's not gonna like, and there's probably gonna be a higher price tag for it. So yeah, again, it's good for the scene to drop prices
Yep.
on some chase rares and stuff, but it's just not something I get excited about.
Yeah. It's nothing special or new.
All right, so let's move forward into probably the funnest part of this, which is where we're
Yes.
just going to talk about cards that we really liked this year. Again, this is not a top 10 list or any of that noise. We don't want people to get the impression we're saying these are the best cards of this year. These are just the ones that like really resonated with us. And we'll tell you why. In some of these cases, these are cards that we found for specific decks of
Mhm.
ours that just like did something really amazing, and maybe they're not great generically, but they're great in this very niche place. So we just want to gush about the cards that we liked from
We
the
love
last year
gushing
a little
about
bit. So
cards, it turns out.
because we love gushing about cards. That's right. So that's what we're gonna do. I'll let Zombie kick it off here. Tell us one of the cards from your list, why you picked it, what's so great about
So
it.
the first card I picked on my list was Birthing Ritual. It is a 2-mana enchantment. It says at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature, look at the top 7 cards of your library. Then you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less from among those cards onto the battlefield, where X is 1 plus the sacrificed creature's mana value. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. What I like about this card, and this is what we kind of alluded to earlier, they made Birthing Pod more fair, which makes it more likely for me to play it. Right? So like I don't have a deck in mind necessarily right this second that wants Birthing Ritual, but like now that I know that this card exists and I'm like, yeah, this deck could use a Birthing Pod, but I'm trying to lower the power level, so we'll use Birthing Ritual instead. It's more fair, and I just like what they're doing with these cards where it's like, hey, let's make a more fair version for the people that want to stay a little bit more casual. So yeah, I really enjoy this card a lot.
It's an excellent example of that principle, and this one really does shine out. There are a couple others we could talk about, but this one really, like, when you're looking to do that kind of thing,
Right.
here we have that very good example of it.
All
All
right.
right, my first card is from Murders at Karlov Manor. So the card is called Doppelgang. It's a sorcery. It's XXX green and blue, so you got to pay X 3 times. For each of X target permanents, create X tokens that are copies of that permanent.
This card
So
looks
the
like
reason I
fun.
love this card is that Commander often can get to that point where we're doing big mana things, where we end up with a whole lot of mana, and now if we have that like really kind of over the top amount, we have something that we can do that creates an even more over the top moment. So remember that as X increases, you're making that many copies of all of these targets. I would say that the impact is right around 3. So if you have 11 mana and can pay X3, you can target 3 permanents and they don't have to be yours.
Nope.
And you make 3 copies of each of those permanents. So the one card, 11 mana, creates 9 things. And you can copy lands, and you can copy enchantments, and you can copy artifacts, and you can copy your opponent's stuff. There's so much opportunity for this to go absolutely ham sandwich.
So this is I reminding me of a game where I was playing my door deck and I went from 10 mana to over 260 mana in one turn. And like how funny would it have been if I was just like, let's doppelgang everything.
Let's divide that by 3 and see how many things I can make a copy of. Right? Like I have 250 mana. Let's do some quick math. That's 63 times approximately.
Yes.
So I'm going to target 60 permanents, and I'm going to make 60 copies of those. If you have
Well, I had a mana reflections and a doubling cube.
So listen, if you have the cowboy lands that do a damage when they enter the battlefield, you just kill somebody at that
outright,
point.
outright.
Yeah, so Doppelgang's just the reason that I like it. Like, is it going to warp the format? Is it going to change everybody's day? Certainly not. Simic colors, so that's a powerful color combination. It's probably too slow to be anything like competitive, but for a casual, player like myself, Timmy at heart, this does that ridiculously over the top thing where people get to go, I just made 10 copies of 10 different. I just put 100 permanents on the battlefield for 32.
Easy clap. Easy clap.
Yep.
So the next card on my list is actually one of my favorite board wipes that was printed in this set, or in this year, and it is Nuclear Fallout. It is X and 2 black. Each creature gets twice -X until end of turn, and each player gets X red counters. So what I like about it is if you have enough mana, it just kills everybody.
It's true. It is another card that if you dump a bunch of mana into it, it's circumstantial to some extent, but people play with non-lands. They're gonna take damage from the rad.
Well, that's the thing. Because if even like they have the Eldrazi to prevent them from milling out, they're still gonna take a whole bunch of damage because they have to reshuffle and continue milling.
Right.
So maybe they wouldn't have to continue milling, but they would take damage for each non-land card in their deck.
Right. It's not being milled out. I mean, you can mill people out with the counters, but they're also taking damage as they're milling non-land things. So yes, this card doubles as win condition, which is what makes it such a good board wipe. It's uniquely good in the Valgavoth Harrower of Souls deck that I just built.
Yeah.
Because it does damage to each of the players on their turn, triggering the commander. So there are some commander decks where with black and their color identity, where this feels like an auto include as one of your board wipes.
Yeah, this is going to go great in my Wingrace deck once I find room to put it in there.
It certainly is. It very much
because like then I'm benefiting from the mill on top of everything else as well. Like, dude, that's right. It's just sick nasty.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what do you got?
My second card is also from Murders of Karlov Manor. This is technically a legendary creature. I didn't include this here as something that I think could be your commander. It certainly could, but I actually think that this card is going to show up in lots of 99s, and obviously by the price tag on this card, everybody agrees with me. This is Delny, Streetwise Lookout, 2 and a white for a 2/2 Human Scout legendary creature. It reads, creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. If an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So, tiny Panharmonicon-ish effect. It's not just enters triggers, it's any kind of trigger. Sky's the limit here. Just has to be small creatures. So this kind of organically goes in a lot of things that already exist. There's a lot of commanders with white in their color identity that if you add this in here, it basically means they're triggering more than once. Samwise Gamgee.
Or my Black Panther Heir Apparent deck.
Black Panther, that's right. So this is fantastic in the 99. It is obviously an expensive card, but if you have, this is just something that we're going to see in Commander, and I think that's where it really shines, because as a 2/2 in individual, 60 card formats, it's really very vulnerable and probably doesn't live to get its impact. I mean, I've seen some standard decks with this card, but really, in Commander, it's just, I think that's why its price tag is as high as it is right now, is because the Commander players saw this and were immediately like, oh yes, there's lots of opportunity for Yep.
Gimme. No, I really like this card a lot too. So, but we're going to go into my next pick, which is Ripples of Undeath. It turns out I really like enchantments. It is a black and a colorless, and it says at the beginning of your first main phase, mill 3 cards. You may pay 1 and 3 life. If you do, put a card from among those cards into your hand. So it's a Fairer Sylvan Library. Like, that's how I'm reading this card.
I guess.
I mean,
feels like a stretch.
like as I said, it's a very
So,
fair
so you
Sylvan library.
and a 3 for the best card out of your top 3, and the
Mhm.
other ones go in the graveyard.
Yeah, but like you're also like you're not gonna
Okay.
you're
Okay.
gonna oh, something happened good. That I guess the Eagles scored or something.
Oh no! Go Birds!
Go Birds! No, so the reason why I like it is I like the fact that it's just milling 3 cards, because a lot of the times where I struggle is like in like a graveyard deck is that whole self mill problem, and this card is a very easy fix where it's like, oh, I'm gonna mill 3 cards and it doesn't matter what they are, because they're basically an extension to my hand, so the pay 1 and 3 life might not even matter. It's nice that it's an option, but like it doesn't always matter, and that's something that I like about this card a
We
lot.
talk a lot about versatility, right? Like this. So the base level, the floor of what this card is doing is it's dumping 3 cards into your graveyard from your library every turn.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have any kind of benefit from that, your Wind Gray stack, the Wise Mothman, like if you're getting a benefit organically from that mill, that's enough. The fact that you have the option to take the best one of those cards for a generic mana and 3 life in a 40 life format, it's solid. I really, I definitely already slotted this into my Mothman deck for exactly that reason. It and at 2 mana, the cost for including it is very low.
Right. All right, what do you got for us?
The next one's this is a deeply personal pick. I'm not going to sit here and argue that this card is good in a lot of different places. I'm just going to tell you all today the one place where it is incredibly good. So the card is Colonel Autumn from the Fallout release. 1 a white and a black for a 2/3 legendary human soldier that has lifelink. He also has exploit, which means when this creature enters, you may sacrifice a creature. So you can sacrifice it or another creature to exploit. Other legendary creatures you control have exploit, and whenever a creature you control exploits a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So the deck that this guy shines in is Ratadrabic. Because it turns all of your legendary creatures into sacrifice outlets. Now, not infinitely usable or free repeatable sacrifice outlets, but it does mean that if you have Ratadrapic on the field, you can cast, and this is on the board, and Colonel Autumn's on board, you can cast any legend in your deck, immediately exploit it to itself, get the token copy, and whatever other effects happen as a result of that.
Yep.
So Colonel Autumn, and my Ratadrabic deck only includes legendary creatures, which I did as a build restriction at first, but it really turned out to be a positive thing.
Build restriction,
like it was a build restriction, but it really made some synergy happen that is really remarkable. And Colonel Autumn is one of the cards that really makes that hum. And here's how much I think this card is good. I spent like not pre-release, but pre-release money on this card, which wasn't an enormous amount, but I spent pre-release money on this card because of how good I knew it was going to be in Ratadrabic, and it's like 12 cents now. So if I had waited even a couple of weeks, I could have spent virtually nothing on this card, but I happily paid a couple of bucks for it because of how good it is.
Yeah, the funny thing is I almost picked this card because of all the cool things that has happened to me because of it. Like, I've never played the card myself, but I've been hurt. People, please take care of yourself because Colonel Autumn's out there.
Yeah, Colonel Autumn is out there. He's coming for you. Put your defenses up.
So we're gonna go into my next card, and I'm so mad I didn't know about this card until like 3 days ago when I'm sifting through.
You were making this list.
Seriously, I'm sifting through every single card that was printed that was above rare. So like I was looking at all rares and all mythics because I didn't have time to go through every card because that's just insanity. But I used to play a modern deck, okay? That was based off of Knight of the Reliquary. And it was a green-white value engine deck. And now I have the even better version because it can go in Windgrace. And I'm talking about White of the Reliquary, which is a 2/2 zombie knight with vigilance, and then white of the reliquary gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. Not the important part. The important part is sacrifice another creature, search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So holy moly, me just getting unlimited tutors to whatever land that I want will end the game so quickly.
Yeah.
It's such a
I mean, that the old Knight of the Reliquary deck was a toolbox deck, right? And your Windgrace deck has already like got a lot of fantastic tools in it that are in land form. So having this is the perfect toolbox card. Answer me this: like, you do have to sacrifice another creature. What's the what do you have that you'll be able to sacrifice?
I make tokens sometimes.
Okay, so Field of the Dead's in the deck.
Oh, of course.
So Field of the Dead with this, like Field of the Dead online and cooking and giving you zombie triggers with White of the Reliquary here.
I don't have like the most creature production in that deck. Like I try to because I try to avoid landfall token decks because they're a dime a dozen. And I wanted to use my lands for something different to win a different way.
I just mentioned it because it might be worth something thinking about. Like, do you have like incidental creature creation? Again, Field of the Dead's the obvious answer, but are there other things that you might potentially consider including just for the sake of like giving this things to sacrifice? Because if you're creature light, this might end up not being as good as you'd like.
So the short answer is yes, because I also have Razaketh in the list too, so like just another free sack outlet that gets me whatever card I want. So I do plan on updating it a little bit and changing it enough where I can squeeze a little bit more creatures into the list or squeeze like token generation into the list.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see what this thing can do in Windgrace.
I am too. I think it's a solid choice. I'm glad to I always love it when that deck gets a little love and you can change it a little bit. My next card is a tricky one because it is from the Big Score, which we didn't talk about today because the Big Score is really just an extra sheet that went in the back of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Our understanding is that it was originally supposed to be released very much like Aftermath last year. March of the Machines Aftermath were supposed to be a small release set, but when Aftermath did so poorly, they just made it another sheet on the back of Outlaws. So Big Score has a lot of really good cards. We talked a little bit about this before recording, that there are a number of cards on the Big Score list that I believe could have been rares and probably should have been rares. Or maybe even less than that, maybe even uncommons, like Aftermath had rares and uncommons. But this big friend is definitely a mythic, and I am talking about, of course, Vaultborn Tyrant. This is a 7 mana, 5 and 2 green, 6/6 trampoline dinosaur. Whenever Vaultborn Tyrant or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life and draw a card. When Vaultborn Tyrant dies, if it's not a token, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types.
Man, this card's
very big
cool.
dino that creates card advantage for you. Again, for those of us out here who are trying to strap laser beams to our dinosaur.
We found one. We did it, boys. I definitely need to get one of those for Gishath.
You do.
I definitely do.
And really, what I like about this is it is a dinosaur that could and should go in every dinosaur deck except for the price tag. Again, all the big store stuff our Big Score stuff are mythics, and most of them are also very good, so the price tags are very high. But if you have the money, this one's 100% worth it. It replaces itself if it dies. Obviously, Path to Exile exists, but really, you still get a card when this hits the field. And then if it doesn't get dealt with, you get more when you play your other big dinos. But it could also just go in big green decks. It could just go in decks that have big creatures in them. It doesn't have to be a dinosaur deck.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's just a really good card. So we're gonna go into my next card, which is also a really, really good card. Is Warren Soul Trader. Is a 3 mana zombie goblin wizard. You can pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature to create a treasure token. It's a 3/3, and this is just an infinite combo machine. Because with Gravecrawler, you pay 1 life, sacrifice it, create a treasure. Hey, I'll tap that treasure to play a black. So like you have infinite die triggers, like with one other card.
So what I love about this is that it's not infinite because you have to pay the
Mhm.
life to sacrifice. So, and obviously there's ways around that. You just add
A Soul Sister.
anything that gives you a life,
Yep.
right? You add a Soul Sister to that or a Yara, which, drains everybody for one when a black creature comes in, and you solve that problem. But it does make you jump through another hoop. And I look at this card. We talked about them fixing old cards. Like, this is a fixed Phyrexian Altar.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Like, fixed on a couple of levels. You have to pay 1 to sacrifice. It's a creature itself, so it's a little bit more vulnerable, but it makes a mana in the form of a treasure token. So it's got actual upside to it because it's treasure tokens and not just mana. It's got downside because you have to pay the life, like this, and again, it's a creature, so it's easier to kill. Really, I just like it a lot because it is a fixed version of that old card.
Yep. Again, it's that same old story where it's just like getting cards that are fixed from cards that are older and broken. So, what do you got next for us, Tim?
My next pick is a land from Bloomborough, and I picked this because of its versatility. It can technically go in any commander deck, and yes, I mean any commander deck. I'm talking, of course, about Fountain Port. So this is a colorless land. Well, all lands are colorless, Tim. But it does not produce colored mana. So you can tap it for a colorless mana, and then second ability is pay 2 generic, sacrifice a token, draw a card. Third ability is 3 generic, pay a life and tap it, create a 1/1 blue fish token. 4 generic and tap it, create a treasure token. So I included this because of how convinced I am that we will see this card in Commander forever.
I mean, it's a trading post, Alan. It's just for you, but it's on a land, so you'll see
that's
it
for
more.
you, buddy. This is Trading Post on a land. It doesn't do the same stuff as Trading Post, but we have our diehard fan who wants us to put Trading Post and everything, and we do our part. But this land just reminds me of it so much. It gives you all these different diverse options in a vacuum with nothing else. You can ramp if you have nothing else to do, you can make a treasure token to make your next turn a little bit more powerful. You can make a fish on your opponent's end step and then draw an additional card on your turn. Like it instant speed makes a creature that can block. It's not a flyer, but it is a blocker. So like if you need to block and a chump will do, it can add instant speed, make that blocker. And then Commander is a token format. Like most Commander decks produce tokens of some variety. Right. So if your deck incidentally makes treasures or creature tokens or food or any of the other extra rectangles that we often see, you include this and it potentially gives you another a land that draws you cards.
Yep, it's pretty solid. So we're gonna go ahead and go to my next card here, and you'll find out soon that I really like lands. So the card that I picked was Tato Farmer. He is a 3 mana, 2 and a green. He is a zombie mutant peasant. He's a 1/4, and then says, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may get 2 rad counters. And then you can tap him and put target land card in a graveyard that was milled there this turn onto the battlefield under your control tapped. So, Windgrace, here we come.
Like, sensing a theme.
Turns out I like lands that go into the graveyard.
Yeah, how many Windgrace cards do you have on your list? 3?
Minimally.
At least. 4 if you count Nuclear Fallout.
4 if you count Nuclear Fallout.
Yeah. It's awesome. I will say this: Tato Farmer is in the Wise Mothman pre-release or pre-con, and I've usually been underwhelmed by it. That has something to do with the fact that deck didn't really build around milling lands in particular, right? With a deck that is built around that is built around the land dance, this
Mm.
really feels like it's going to be good, especially like when the lands that you're bringing back are so impactful.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just getting a swamp or a forest out, though, it feels like ramp, but I don't know. I actually have found it to be underwhelming, but I understand you're looking at it for that deck and saying, "Oh no, this is
Mm.
gonna do good
This is
business
good.
here."
you, you might get transferred to a new store, Tato Farmer. You're gonna go from the Wise Mothman to
Oh
Lord Windgrace.
shoot! I can't believe you went there.
Oh, I did. I'm stoked about
Amazing. Yeah, so
it.
Tato Farmer, like right place, right time. It's going to be pretty solid. Being
Yeah.
able to return a land is pretty huge.
Alrighty.
My next card, yeah, my next card is again from Bloomborough. I actually had a hard time picking this one because there were several on this list. So I just want to highlight that the talent cycle, the rare talent cycle in Bloomborough. Take a look at all of them, and I do mean all of them. Take a look at them. You may find something because I just love cards in Commander that are going to fill more than one role. That are going to that are versatile over time, that can be both kind of value engines and maybe also win conditions, and several of them meet the mark. And I had a hard time picking one, but I'm just really fond of this one, so this is the one I ended up picking. Honorable mention to Innkeeper's Talent, which is the green one, which is the one I almost picked. So I ended up with Caretaker's Talent. This is a white card. It's an enchantment and it's a class, which means it starts with one ability. You pay a little mana to upgrade it a couple of times. So its first ability, what it comes stock with for 3 mana, whenever one or more tokens enter under your whenever one or more tokens you control enter, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Again, they've been putting this addendum on a lot of cards recently. The ability triggers only once each turn. Really, in Commander, you can still get 4 triggers out of this the whole way around the table. So
Mm-hmm.
still very solid in terms of card draw if you have a deck that can create tokens at instant speed. Like by sacrificing legendary creatures and getting copies of them with your commander. I don't
Weird.
know.
Weird.
Um, Level 2, when for 1 white, when this class becomes level 2, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. So if you've got a non-legendary copy of a white or black legend on your field, you can pay a white mana and get
Mm.
another copy
I
of
want.
that token.
Weird.
And if this is on the field and you haven't drawn a card from it yet, you also draw a card. It seems
What?
okay.
No
And
way.
then finally, in part 3, for 3 and a white, you can level it up, and your creature tokens get +2/+2. So any kind of creature token deck, I think this slots in very well. And again, price tag tells you what you need to know. This is an expensive enough card that I'm sure I'm not the only person that thinks that it's good.
Yeah, we've talked about this card a couple of times on our podcast, and you know
Mhm.
what? I think we'll be talking about it again later. Like I just
Yeah,
have a
I
feeling.
have I forget the actual number, and I don't want to embarrass myself and tell everybody how many commander decks I have, but I have at least 2 that this 100% goes in.
Yep.
Like 2 that like very clearly want this card. And then I would make the argument that there might even be a third and fourth
Mm-hmm.
that could use it.
Yep.
But there's 2 that it's a slam dunk for.
Yeah. So the card that I really excited to talk about is Sire of the Seven Deaths. So we all know I have an Indominus Rex Alpha, and this reads to me give my commander 6 counters for discarding 1 card. But really, what it is a 7 mana Eldrazi that says First Strike, Vigilance, Menace, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, and Ward pay 7 life. So keyword soup, man. And I just want to draw all those cards because this is a draw 6 for me. And it's not a
Yeah,
bad target
it's
to reanimate later.
Certainly not. Like this on the field, like but without having all those other added things, is a good card on the field. It
Mm-hmm.
has vigilance, so it stays around and blocks. It's got first strike, so it usually trades up or just actually kills the
Mm-hmm.
things that it's blocking. Hard to block because of menace and trample. Like it's keyword soup, but the combination of keywords that they actually
It's crazy.
chose make it formidable because because it can be both an incredible blocker and an incredible attacker.
Yeah, the card's absolutely gross, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did get to discard it once and get. I got my 6 cards.
It's
And
so
then
amazing,
then
and
I tried to
it's
reanimate
so
it, and then it
amazing
went
in that
away.
deck. Yeah, it's extra good in that deck, but like and as you said, even as a reanimator target, it's pretty great.
It's pretty solid. All right, what's the last one
My
from
next
me?
choice, my
No,
next
this
choice
isn't
is
the last
from
one.
my no, my next one fell onto this next page.
Oh.
But my next to last one is from my baby Duskmorn, and this is one of the rooms. And again, this is a cycle where I think if you spend some time looking at them, you may find that some of these cards are strict upgrades over things you are already playing, depending on the color of your deck. Honorable mention to the blue one, which is a relatively cheap copy of creature with a back half that is really remarkable. But the one I'm talking about is the green one. First half's called Walk-in Closet, 2 and a green for Crucible of Worlds, an enchantment that says you may play lands from your graveyard. So it costs the same as Crucible of Worlds, with the exception of having one specific green. So if you're in a deck that's getting lands back from its graveyard, probably have green in your color identity. I'm not aware of a lot of decks that run Crucible that don't have green in them. I'm sure that they exist, but
Mono White used to run Crucible just because back then, like ramp and stuff was an issue. So you would like use it to just consistently get your like paramorphic expanses back.
get your fetches back.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense to me, but I think you'll find in a lot of situations, look where you've got your Crucible. Is it a green deck?
Is it a green
you
one?
could Yeah, is it a green deck? And could you possibly run this instead or as well?
Oh yeah.
I think this is an easy shoe in for Ramanopic Excavator.
Mhm.
Like that card does the same thing the Crucible does, but it's a creature, so it's a lot more vulnerable. I think this is in a lot of situations better than that.
Windgrace, I'm probably going to just add it. So that would be, I think, number 4. That just says I can play lands from my graveyard.
Some decks want the redundancy, absolutely. So this is another redundant piece that does that same thing. And then the back half, the absolute icing on this delicious cake, is Forgotten Cellar. And that is 3 and 2 green. When you unlock this door, you may cast spells from your graveyard this turn, and if a card will be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So it is expensive.
Oh my God.
I will make that argument. But if you're in a deck that is making big mana, paying 5 to now have access to every spell in your graveyard until end of turn.
What I wonder what kind of cool spells I can find in my graveyard, Tim. In Windgrace. I'm so curious.
Scape Shift?
I don't know, that seems pretty good. Well, that actually wouldn't be so great. If it's the second time I'm playing it, because usually by then, and then all the lands that I sacrifice get exiled.
Sure, but what if you mill your Scape Shift and you need your Scape Shift back?
Maybe.
But again, or any of the non-land things in your graveyard, any of the small things that you used along the way to get there, you get to use them all again. It's really, like I said, it's just icing. If you never used it, it's fine. But like it is another option, it's why I think the rooms are good. Because in Commander, we're always looking for the card slot to be doing as much as it can. So split cards are great, and rooms make that category.
All right, so we're going into my last card, and boy, I just love talking about this card. This card actually came out in just a Secret Lair drop this year, but it happened, and we're talking about a Bridge of Death. Really, it's Door to Nothingness. Seriously, this card's amazing. Way more people should be running this deck. In fact, I think this right here is the best reprint of the year, hands down.
You heard it here first, folks. Like, comments in the feel free to comment.
You heard it here first.
Best reprint of 2024. Door to Nothingness.
That would make a great short.
It would. It would. I mean,
Anywho.
for avid viewers, you will have some sense of why Zombie is so keen on this card. One of his favorite decks is built entirely around this. So seeing and we're Monty Python fans enough to love the Bridge of Death reference and that they made it Door to Nothingness. Just there's a lot of fun to be had here with this one, but it's ultimately just that Zombie loves this card.
But before we go on to your next card, what is your favorite color?
Green.
No, wait, blue.
Both.
All right.
My final card in the 99 for this year is one last journey over into Duskmourn for one more cycle of cards where all of them are good, but there are some that are more aligned with my color combination. So I'm talking about the Overlord cycle. These are enchantment creatures that are avatar horrors. They have an impending cost, which allows you to put them in play as an enchantment, or that you can pay them for their full cost and they come in as a creature. If you play them for impending, they have to work off a number of time counters to get them fully creatured. So Overlord of the Baelmerk is the black one. It's 5 mana, 3 and 2 black for full cost as a 5/5. It impends for 1 and a black with 5 time counters on it. And I just want to warn people, like, if you impend this in a commander game, you're not gonna get a lot of value out of it.
No,
you're gonna get the first enters ability, and that's pretty much it. So really, what I want you to ask yourself is, if you impend it for 2 mana, you get to mill 4 cards and return a non-avatar creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. So mill 4, raise dead.
Creature. Yeah.
Right? That is not terrible, but it's also not powerful. So, but the money here is when this thing comes out for full cost in Commander, when it's a 5/5 creature for 5 that does it on enters and on attack.
Yeah.
That mills 4 and gets a creature back from your creature or planeswalker back from your graveyard. So I think that this one of all of the overlords has it has a great amount of value built into it if you're playing with it. And again, if you're in black, chances are you may have some kind of value engine running off of your graveyard. So having something, what I love about this is that it does both things.
Yep.
It mills and returns a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So it really is a self-fulfilling mechanic.
It's the work and the payoff. Like, it does both.
Exactly.
That's really cool. I like that card a lot. A little sad it wasn't the green one, because who wouldn't want more lands?
Well, it's very funny. Like, we talked about this one as well. I think the green one is right next door to this one. I think that they are both very, very good. But there's some discourse on the green one. I think that when it first came out, there was some sense that like getting the everywhere land into play was kind of a mid thing for 3 mana, which is the impending cost. The difference is with the green one, 4/5 mana, you get a 5/4 creature that gets you a land that counts as everything. And the impending cost on that one is a little lower. I think the number is actually 4.
Yeah,
this one has one of the higher ones. All of that to say that, like, getting a land token that is every land type and creates every color is more powerful than I think people gave it credit for. So yes, the green one is also very, very good.
Alrighty, so now that we've gone over the top 16 cards of 2024, no questions asked. You hear that comment section? You're not allowed to make fun of our picks because they are perfect,
flawless.
We are gonna
no notes.
We're gonna go into our favorite commanders that we have made this year. Now, we are choosing cards that are printed this year as well. So, like, if that were the case, it would have been Sisay Weatherlight Captain, and it would have been
Buttercup.
my Buttercup deck. But that card was not printed this year, so we're not going to talk about it. So Tim, what's the first one you picked?
So mine is a returning favorite. You have heard me talk about the Golgari color combination as being nearest and dearest to my heart, and that the first real commander that I built was the Gitrog monster. Well, Cowboy set gave us a new Gitrog, and it is enormously fun. So it's the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. It's three, a black and a green for a 6/5 frog horror mount with trample and haste.
Yeehaw.
It saddles for one, which means as long as the creature has power, it can saddle. It can ride the giant frog. So when Gitrog deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that saddled it, and if you do, you draw X cards and put up to X land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. So this deck is chock full of creatures that are inexpensive but have high powers. And in green and black, there's quite a lot of good options to do just that. So the nice thing about Gitrog is it has haste. So if I get a creature with a big power out in the first 3 or 4 turns, and then I cast Gitrog, on the turn it enters, it can saddle that big creature, hopefully get combat damage in, and then leap forward, excuse the pun, in terms of value on the board. So if my opponents allow me to resolve Gitrog's ability once, I usually get so far ahead that it is very hard to catch up. I find that like with this deck, I usually don't get the threat assessment. Like I'm not the threat until I resolve the ability the first time, and then as soon as I do it, everybody goes,
Like,
"Oh no." Oh no, you are the problem. And it's true, because there's creatures that have like, 8 or 9 power that you can get on board before Gitrog comes out. So it's drawing you 8 or 9 cards and then letting you dump 8 or 9 lands. You almost never get all of the lands, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
If
matter.
if you get 3 or 4, if you go from 5 lands on turn 5 to 10 lands on turn 6, you drew
win,
that many
right?
cards,
like you just win.
it really is an incredibly powerful deck, but it is very also fairly contingent on the commander not getting killed. So, but I love the Gitrog. It's one of my more favorite decks I built this year.
This just in, I think there was another touchdown. I'm not watching the game, but I hear a lot of screaming.
You're just hearing noises from the other room.
Hearing noises from the other room. So why isn't this? Why isn't this in Indominus Rex Alpha? Because Trample and Haste are both good abilities, and sometimes I am actually actively looking to try to kill my commander to draw more cards.
Oh dang, yeah, slot it in there. It's this one counter to a lot of the other cards I've talked about today. The card itself, the commander, is not an expensive buy.
No.
So like usually I might even have an extra one, to be honest. So yeah, if you want one of those for your Indominus, I think that might be an interesting choice.
So the first commander we're going to talk about, we just had a full episode on this guy, but I had so much fun building it. It is Black Panther Wakanda King, and like it just made me stretch different muscles that I'm not used to stretching, right? Because I don't really make too many token decks. I really don't make too many +1/+1 counter decks. Just not really what I do. I like big dumb fatties sometimes, but like I don't know, sometimes I find it annoying to keep track of all the counters. But man, when I played this deck, I had so much fun playing it. There's less decision paralysis when you're playing a deck with 22 of the same cards. So like sometimes I just want to shut off my brain and say, bleh. And that's what this deck does. It just goes bleh. With bunnies. It's cute. So yeah, I really like the way this deck just feels. I had a lot of fun building it. I had a lot of fun playing it. It's hard to go deeper than that. Like it's just a all around fun card. And again, it's the Universe Beyond stuff where it's like I like to see other IPs.
Yeah, and it's really like I think that your Black Panther deck with the heir apparent in it is one of those rare times where the angle that you took is not necessarily the
Mm-hmm.
angle everybody takes.
Yep.
Like it was a little off the beaten path, and that just feels good. It's not an experience that we get a lot in Commander. Usually when we build a deck, even if we're not doing research and not using the
Yep.
resources, we end up with something that looks pretty similar because that's just the nature of the game, right? Synergy is synergy. You find the cards that fit with it, and sometimes you usually end up with something that's pretty
Right.
similar, but your angle on this one from the gate was a little off the beaten path, and it resulted in something very fun to watch and very fun to play,
Right.
I'm sure. My second commander that I built this year, and I did build quite a few commanders out of all of these different sets here. I actually struggle with this one because there was another one that I was going to talk about, and at the last minute I switched over to this one because I really love playing this deck, and it is
Yeah.
the Wise Mothman. So it is Sultai colors, black, green, blue, total of 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer. When it enters or attacks, each player gets a rad counter. Whenever one or more non-land cards are milled, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. Listen, it's a lot of words. I'm not going to spend a lot of time rules lawyering people here. The deck that I built is about milling everybody, getting creatures with +1/+1 counters, building a big force, and stomping people. And the Mothman himself, if you've never played against him, if not dealt with, can become a lethal threat faster than you might think.
Mothman goes burr. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
it does.
scary. Absolutely terrifying.
And really, like, as with I'm pretty basic as far as this topic goes, but this color combination is definitely up there for me in terms of my favorites. So and again, I play Fallout and have played the Fallout that has the Wise Mothman in it, so there was a lot of layers to why this really resonated with me. But I really I just had a lot of fun building the deck, and this was a case where I got the pre-con and just loaded it up with cards that I already had, and ended up with something that was really fun. So
Yeah.
just a great experience overall for me.
Yeah, man. Every time that I see you playing the Wise Mothman, the joy that I see in your proverbial face, because I don't actually see your face, but
Yeah.
I can just tell how much of a good time you're having when you're playing this deck, and like when you're having a good time, I'm having a good time. Everyone's having a good time.
You know what I think it is that there is just inherent in the milling process a level of variance. Like there is a little bit of the spin the wheel effect with this deck because just by nature of like milling the things, and then sometimes like what I get allows me to take this line that I wouldn't have planned to do,
Right.
but here it is now because it's the card that I just inherently milled. So I don't know. I think that's part of it, is that it does feel kind of chaotic to me, and I do like that energy.
Oh yeah, it's great. So the last commander that we're going to talk about tonight, or today, I guess it's daytime when we're recording this. You couldn't tell by the blizzard behind me, but
Right.
so I picked Heracrast Erupting Nullkite. And again, like this last choice was actually surprisingly difficult because there was one other commander, Becca, I was thinking about talking about too. But there was just something about Heracrast that like the math in which that I get to use to play my creatures is so different, and it feels very unique of a it's like a unique style of deck where Obeka, like there's only so many creatures or upkeep triggers that you can get, where here it's just like I can choose whatever creatures I want. And like you just get to do all sorts of fun things, and the chest burster is always a blast. So yeah, this card's great. I like how everything it does. Like I should probably read it. Heracrast Erupting Nullkite is a Eldrazi dragon with emerge. He costs 9. He has emerge 6 and 2 red. And emerge is you may cast this spell by sacrificing your creature and paying the emerge cost reduced by that creature's mana value. When you cast this spell, you may exile your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. It has flying, and then it says each creature spell you cast has emerge. This emerge cost is equal to the mana cost. So, like the crazy math that you can do to get this card out early to then like cast this card to then go into another card, and it's just like the rabbit hole you get stuck in just is so much fun.
I think that the name is really appropriate, like that it's erupting, right? That like once this hits the field, it creates a cascading effect, an eruption of the rest of the cards in your hand if you have things set up. And I've definitely seen it happen a couple of times where it's like, okay, I play this, and that's going to allow me to play this, and that's going to allow me to play this, and it just like feels very much like this endless stream of incredible threats that everybody's going to have a hard time dealing with now.
I want to see that scene in a movie where it's just like, hey, this comes into play, and then something pops out of its chest to replace it, but then something out of that chest pops out of this chest, and it's just like, whoa, this thing got real trippy real quick. That would just be a fun scene.
Yeah, and just in terms of like commander design, this one, you know, being a mono red commander and having the kind of hoops that you had to jump through to build it, it just seemed like a very interesting deck building challenge. And I really do love what you came up with for it, because I always look for commanders that encourage me to kind of explore lines of play that I wouldn't necessarily seek on my own, and I think that my picks for my favorites this year are pretty comfort based areas. Like both of my picks are like, no, this is my wheelhouse. Whereas in your case, both of yours were, no, this got me out of my wheelhouse, and I like those things for it. So I really appreciate that about those decks. All right, friends, opponents, horology fans, both young and old, look it up. Thank you thank you kindly for spending time with us on the Head Games Commander podcast. Remember, you can support this show and all of our other content by watching this and other videos on our YouTube page, checking out our streams on Twitch and YouTube. You can find the deck lists for the commanders we talked about and all those links in the description.
But before we scoop things up, we want to hear from you, the think tank. What are your favorite cards from 2024? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for playing along with us. And have a wonderful day. Bye.